Probably an EF5 tornado, but just didn't hit anything at peak intensity. It was rated EF3. But I like it to be on the other side of the tornado when the sun shines in the funnel and lights it up bright white like this. And on either side of the tornado, we have inflow jets near the ground called ghost trains. And on the back side of this tornado, we had about 140 mile per hour ghost train inflow. And I jammed the brakes to the ground, or jammed the brakes to the floor with the Dominator 3, and it was still pulling us across the road. It bent our mirrors out, the hood was about to rip open. But this tornado was a lot bigger than what the condensation model shows. A lot of times the wind will extend out a little bit with this tornado. But to intercept this one, we really needed to be east of it, probably anchored in that ditch, and we might have been able to handle that tornado. You can see how quickly the winds were going at the base. But Will has been working for the last 2 months to get the Dominator 3 ready for these shows. And he's also going to build a new hood on it. We're going to have a red camera on the roof that has meteorological instruments built in so that we can get high resolution imagery of the tornadoes. And this one happened in late June near Spiritwood, North Dakota. And we were live streaming this tornado, and there was a family in a farmhouse just to the north of our position right here that was watching the live stream. And in addition, the tornado wobbled to the southeast across the railroad tracks, and they thought they were going to be okay. So they're like, thank goodness. But then the tornado intensified into a barrel, turned off to the northeast while they were watching the stream, and they're like, oh no, it's going to hit us. So they went down into the basement, and the whole family went into one of the rooms down there, barricaded themselves up against the door, and the whole house was shredded above it, debris coming underneath the door. And we ended up pulling up to the farmhouse to do search and rescue, and pulled them out of the basement completely unharmed. But their house was totally destroyed, unfortunately. But this is that tornado. Your Spiritwood, North Dakota. You can hear that roar of the tornado. A lot of times a bigger tornado will have a lower frequency rumble to it. And a smaller tornado will have a higher frequency roar, so you can almost tell the shape and size of the tornado based on the sound of it. That's a live stream. Ideally, we'd be shooting rockets in this, and we have a real-time intensity estimate. You can say, oh, we got to get 4 tornadoes here coming from your time. Maybe detonate something there so we can shut it down one day. You would think all tornado research should end with tornado dissipation at some level, but I do think that tornadoes are important for heat transport in our planet. If we got rid of tornadoes that are really complex and storms, and especially hurricanes, we'd have more problems. But this is probably a 5 tornado at peak intensity here. It's all rear flank downdraft for RFP right around it. I was worried it was going to expand and then we'd be inside this tornado for like a half hour. But now we good. And you can see it wobble that started moving off the northeast of that house. But the northern plains are crazy this year. 62 tornadoes in North Dakota, which is a record. And this is the widest tornado in Texas history now. We saw this one just west of Lubbock near Morgan, Texas. Classic dust buster right there. I guarantee you get pink eye if you got hit by that tornado. I think there is a lot of fungus in there, bacteria, fecal matter. You can see the white cloud right around it. That was actually a 2 tornado. Kind of a big broad circulation. Believe it or not, it was hollow in the middle of that. There's a project called Otis project where they fly into the FPV drone and they show this green tornado on the hollow floor, not a multiple vortex. This is a clear look at dynamic pipe. This is from last year in Westmoreland, Kansas. This one was also a tornado that was now born as here this morning, and we were live streaming and the firefighters sounded the sirens. And in this one, the dynamic pipe tilted all the way over the top of our head. You can see the clear side, requires a really low pressure fall to get condensation all the way to the ground. So you know if you see one of these tall noodles like that, slow moving, it's probably a very powerful tornado. Already 100 degrees flying in it. The whole insane is harmonically and drilling down at the same time, but also the sinking air is starting to detach from the mesocyclone, which is moving off to the east. Again, I lost my drone in a tornado. I got in a rental car, my infrared set. Watch it tighten up here. It was underneath the scorpion tail funnel. The rest are coming to us 8 miles of that vehicle. And I just appreciate more of this. You can definitely see the rapid motion, the combination of vertical violence, and the scorpion tail is getting choked off from the mesocyclone. With that tornado, we can see deep look at the fine scale structure of the inclusion process. But sadly, it did cause a lot of damage. We did search and rescue here. Anytime we see damage, we have to chase and do search and rescue. We started a group called Team Dominator Search and Recovery as well. You may have seen them. They're trained individuals that will follow us behind us during these storm chases. So when we encounter damage like this, they can kick into action and help save lives. And this tornado actually ripped the manhole cover on the road too. There's the Team Dominator Search and Recovery. It's very important for us to help out before, during, and also after the storm. But our science mission is definitely going to ramp up next year. We're going to be launching dozens of sensors into the tornadoes at the same time. That's the key. You can't just have one trajectory through the tornado and mesocyclone. You need a lot in there at the same time because it's the gradients in the thermodynamics that determine a tornado's behavior and intensity. And if we can better understand the gradients of thermodynamics and maybe even find the weak point of the tornado genesis process, maybe that research could one day be used to dissipate tornadoes, at least for the future generations of storm chasers out there. But a really important part of this talk is never stop chasing. And that doesn't only apply to storms and sciences, but if you're passionate about something, it's really easy to work hard. And I definitely encourage all the young people in here to find your passion in life and pursue it relentlessly, and you'll have a great, happy life. And it's really easy to work hard. We love what you do. So thank you, everybody, for coming out and supporting our science. Thank you, everybody, for having me here in Northwest Texas. Say hi to Will as well. He is running our science mission back there. He can build all those miniaturized sensors. He can build jet power lawnmowers, rockets that can fly through the air for 2 hours, long arm probes, computers. So Will Clay is definitely responsible for a lot of this stuff. Take any questions you might have up here. Can't see very good. What's that? Yeah, Edgar's back in Oklahoma City. He's in Yukon right now. So he'll probably be with us on Monday, or it does look like there could be a storm chase on Monday in Oklahoma and Kansas. So they've already got a slight risk out, and I bet it'll be an enhanced risk coming up. So we'll be chasing. We're actually taking the Dominator 3 up north right after this and then chasing on Monday. Question? I saw him out last year. I think he was storm chasing, and he was in a Subaru, believe it or not. So he ended up selling the TIV to a guy named Ryan Shepard, and they still storm chase with it, Team TIV. And yeah, but I've heard that he's storm chasing again. So I didn't hear from him for many years though, for a while there. So.
The sensors that go on, like in the movie Twister, did Twister inspire that, or did that predate the movie?
Yeah, Twister came out in 1997. And I came down to University of Oklahoma in 97, and it definitely inspired the use of miniaturized sensors to get inside the tornado. But definitely just kind of the natural miniaturization of technology too kind of made that possible, where you can have a really lightweight sensor attached to a parachute. And we wanted it to move at the same speed as the wind, being a Lagrangian framework. So that way the GPS data of the sensor, then we can get the wind speed from that if it's a light enough probe. But I think the miniaturization of technology just kind of naturally encouraged that evolution. But we had ground-based probes, but an issue with that is the tornado will move a lot of times after you deploy it. So we realized that the Dominator was just a mobile version of that probe, where we can adjust at the last second to increase our odds of getting inside the tornado. And then we wanted the three-dimensional data of the tornado from the ground up, so we had to have miniaturized sensors flying through that. Because of the radar, we did try a radar too to be inside the tornado and scan vertically to get the updrafts and downdrafts, but we actually ended up losing that radar. I'm not even sure where it went, but the sensors going up through the tornado give us the Lagrangian data actually measured by a sensor. They go in like 6 or 8 inches in the dirt or grass. But sometimes when you're on cement, they'll actually lift up the front of the Dominator and allow wind to get underneath. So, but they are at a slight angle so that they can hold the Dominator in place. But I think that they're more used to kind of prevent sliding and potential rolling where the wind would get underneath it. But we do need to improve our anchoring system. With Dominator 5, we might make it shaped like a flying saucer, and then just have a ring of spikes along the outside of it. But then it's not vulnerable to a side wind, but it has to be within 8 feet in width to legally go down the road. So we could have it where we deploy the path of a tornado and then suddenly widen it out.
If it's a saucer, bring ET with you.
We will. Yeah. We need a UFO alien with us.
I'm just playing.
I want to see a mothership cloud. So in the morning when I get up, what do I look for in the weather prediction?
Well, you should see a lot of them around here.
I'm usually at home in bed by the time I'm on.
Yeah, they usually form in late afternoon into the evening. So in the morning, I would look at the Storm Prediction Center convective outlooks and see if there's a threat of guerrilla hail, because usually we get threats of large hail, and oftentimes they carve up mesocyclones too. And then get the radar scope back, and then you can track them. And you definitely just kind of hit the road. Get out there and chase, and you will see a mothership.
So a lot of times with the sensors, you hear that the information is supposed to help with builders and things like that as far as safety. Do you anticipate that some of that information would maybe help with radar predictions? Because a lot of times you'll see a couplet on radar and there's no issue, no warning, no anything because it's a weak rotation or something. Do you anticipate the sensors could possibly detect better when to say, hey, there's for sure going to be a tornado coming down at this?
Yeah, they can definitely sense that a tornado is going to happen because one is forming when we launch into it, so you definitely know that it's in progress. But I think definitely tornadoes, you can identify them in most cases with radar. So I wonder if AI identification of couplets and rotation could definitely help out with that. And just general radar training. A lot of times when we study meteorology, at least when I was in school, we never even covered radar breakdown or even very much in forecasting. We were just doing mathematical derivations for 17 years. So I think that maybe just doing that, or forecasting and radar and identifying it. Because the dual pole radar, you can see debris and everything in there. And you can definitely tell based on the radar trends that they're about to happen. But I think also the infrasound data and measuring sound waves of tornadoes to identify the tornado genesis process before it actually forms could be something that could identify them in advance too. But yeah, there have been some issues with human radar interpretation recently, but I think it's just human error sometimes. At least the machine won't have that, when AI takes over. What's that? A mouth? Oh, that was just for decorative purposes. Kevin Martin's a really creative guy, the one that built it. So he put the teeth around the front. Yeah. Next year we're gonna have lights underneath it as well, and a new front end. So we need a new hood. Will's working on the new hood right now. Well, they get sucked into the tornado because the tornado's low pressure, and all the wind is trying to flow in toward the low pressure. And then we line it up on the ground. So I look and see where the tornado is, and then I get just to the east or northeast of it, where the inflow, all the wind is flowing in toward the tornado. On the south side of it, you get westerlies and it's sinking air. So you want to be just on the northeast side of the tornado to shoot it into that inflow, and then the parachute will pop and ride all the way back to the tornado.
So the movie Twisters actually did quite well in theaters. If they were to make a sequel to that, you think that they would invite you to play someone in the movie?
Maybe. I worked with the writer of Twisters before it came out, and when Joseph Kosinski was the director, we were going to help him get real tornado footage, and they were going to do a CGI real tornado footage hybrid. But I worked with the writer a lot, and when he was writing the screenplay and everything, and they based a lot of the stuff from that team up of the Team Dominator. But then they shifted to a new director earlier that year, just before the spring shooting happened, and then I never heard again from them. They ghosted me after that.
Oh man.
But maybe if the next one comes out.
Well, you're awesome.
But it happened in the spring, and we were, that Spalding, Nebraska tornado intercept happened when they were filming that.
You said the Twister's truck is anything like, would you say it's accurate if a storm like that would come out, like in the movie? Or
Yeah, I think it could probably handle the wind. The anchoring system is the key to keep it on the ground, because the tumble is what you don't want to have happen. But I bet that the window, they probably had polycarbonate windows in that, which would help. But the regular truck as is, if we get a 2x4 or something coming in there, it can easily go through the exterior of a regular truck. So, you probably should have just built a log around it. But then it would look too much like a Dominator, so.
So, as a Boy Scout, did you ever get to use it?
Yeah, I got to be an Eagle in 1995. Are you a Boy Scout? Nice. Awesome. Some of the best times of my life were from Scouts.
No, Eagle Scout, that's fine.
Congratulations.
So,
Be prepared.
what?
Be prepared.
I remember all that too. So I got involved with this whole group because I saw David Shaw's video of the reach. And that's how I got kind of totally involved and stuff. I don't really know much. My question is actually, what part of the country is your favorite to chase? It's Texas, Plains, like
I probably like to chase in the Dakotas, most South Dakota, also Oklahoma, and Texas. So I really like to chase everywhere. Yeah, Great Plains, High Plains, and I like Dixie Alley too for different reasons. You have a greater number of storms down there, but the difficulty is a little bit harder because you have faster storm motion, and driving the Dominator through all the complex terrain can be a little difficult. But you do have a greater number of storms, so you can kind of hop down the line as they happen. But I probably prefer chasing in South Dakota just because it's got the natural beauty, the Black Hills, the Missouri River Valley there. You can see the northern lights sometimes too, the fossils.
This is a two-parter. You had a live stream last year where you said F
Yeah, that was on April 27, last year, April 28, or April 27, the day after that big outbreak in eastern Nebraska. They drove all the way down to Oklahoma, and then they got stuck in the mud. But Jordan and Sierra really wanted to get the unlimited breadsticks and the salad bar. We should have kept chasing, of course, so I think I was really frustrated that we couldn't get out of the mud and just said the Olive Garden thing. I don't know Olive Garden anymore, though. I had a bad experience a while back. But I do love the salad and breadsticks. Yeah, that was a tough chase. We ended up missing all those tornadoes. The Sulphur Oklahoma one, Ardmore. They were all after dark, but over there, you can't see left. So. Yep. sticks and everything, but if it was in the middle of nowhere, I think we'd have a chance. But that suction vortex video I showed you at the beginning actually had the F5 winds. It was just only about 10 feet across. So it didn't hit the back of the Dominator. I think the strongest winds were just front of it. And it was such a small vortex that it hit the Dominator and weakened too. You could see a trench cut through the corn, and it stopped right at the Dominator. But it did survive that one, but I think a bigger tornado in the F5, I don't think that we probably would survive. But it would be terrifying for sure. That's why I want to build a Dominator 5 that could be a guaranteed survival in the F5, and then it would take a lot of the stress out of the intercept process. Yep.
What are your plans for Dominator 5?
Dominator 5 is to make it like a flying saucer. Will's going to build it with a lot of support, and we want to make it shaped like a flying saucer, and then it can actually get wider when it deploys. But we definitely want it to be less vulnerable from a side wind.
How long do you think it's going to
I think 2027 will be the first year that it'll be ready. I want to get one more year on the Dominator 3. So I'll be almost 50 years old when it gets done.
Why do you think that Oklahoma just seems to be the main? Like I've noticed Oklahoma, ain't no love in Oklahoma. So why is there so many tornadoes, you think, that seem to happen there a lot?
I think it's probably topography induced, and you're a certain distance away from the Gulf, and the troughs will kind of come in and they assume that favorable shape in the southern plains.
It's just so common there.
We had 152 tornadoes in Texas this year,
Yeah.
which was the most. You had over 100 tornadoes in Illinois. South Dakota, North Dakota had 62 tornadoes. So pretty much, I think Texas gets the most because you get the early season Dixie events in East Texas. You also get Texas Panhandle. There's a Texas Hill Country season, and you can even get summertime events down here. But in Oklahoma, I think it's just a little bit further north, so you can get a lot of those late May to June events still. But Kansas should probably be more active, but yeah, it hasn't been just by chance the last couple of years. But I think the warm pool of water in the North Pacific has caused the North Pacific oscillation. Like 3 years ago, I think we began a 10-year cycle. So maybe 5 to 7 more years of tornadoes. I figured this year would be weak for hurricanes, so that's why we did the speaking tour this fall. But everybody else said it was going to be a big season. But I think there's a lot more to the hurricane equation than sea surface temperatures.
What storm
Probably the tornado. The last second of every intercept, I always panic a little bit, but it's usually too late to do anything about it. So usually the tornadoes, because I know what they're capable of, definitely. And, yeah, I always get a little worried after every intercept. But I'm not too worried about the other ones. And tornadoes, I know I'm not really afraid of because they're not trying to get you. So it's, yeah. Like a human, for example, if it was trying to get you, it's trying to, but a tornado is just kind of doing its thing. So you can just get out of its path or adjust. Yep. Tornadoes are my favorite to chase. Tornado and hail. I also like flash floods. The desert mountain flash floods where you're kind of waiting, like you basically have to use hourly rainfall data and see which wash or basin that the rain's hitting, and then you track it downstream, you see if there's a burn scar in the area, and then you just wait for the flood, sometimes for a couple hours, and you can hear them coming from like a half hour in advance, you can smell them out of the desert. So I think flash floods are probably one of my favorite ones to chase. Hurricanes I used to love, but more recently there are a lot of people are chasing them. The whole media enterprise goes out there and sets up their tents along the coast, and then they evacuate the whole coastline so you can't even cover the hurricane. So I think I might just chase the tornadoes and the other kinds of hurricanes from here now, because it just is a lot of horizontal rain, and I rode out in Category 5 in my Subaru, and the car was bouncing up and down, and I had the sunroof open, and the wind was so strong that no rain was falling into the sunroof. Yep. Let it rip. What's that? Yeah, we do. The first week of October, we're gonna repair those. So we're gonna do Dominator 1 actually drives right now, but Dominator 2 needs a new starter box. But they were kept outside for many years, so I had to go back and get them and then tow them to their current location. But they're kept inside now. I had a rough patch there for a few years. Again? Got another one? The biggest one was that 2.6 mile wide El Reno, Oklahoma tornado, and I also chased the second widest in Howland, Nebraska on May 22nd, 2004. And this year the widest was that mile wide one up in Morton, Texas, in the Texas Panhandle. The strongest I've chased is EF5s. I've chased 3 EF5s officially rated, but I've probably seen a lot more than that. So I've seen over 1,000 tornadoes and like 60 hurricanes, I think. It's all I've ever done is storm chase, so if you do something long enough, eventually you're going to start seeing a lot of them. Yep. Over there on the side. Oh, anytime they show up, we'll chase with them. So, yeah, I like Mark Payton. I know they've got some new videos coming out too. Yeah, they're awesome. High energy. I think we're supposed to go bass fishing with them in Arkansas next. Yep. What was that? Oh yeah, I chased in Argentina in 2009 and 2010, and I've chased hurricanes in other countries like Mexico and Jamaica, and we were supposed to go to Asia to chase a super typhoon in 2020 for a show called Storm Rising, but the pandemic hit. So I haven't had a chance out there, but I'm chasing so much here in the United States that by the time something pops up out of country, I can't even travel anymore. I just like the weather here is so crazy, you can get a lot of storm chasing in. But I do want to go down to the Pampas again and maybe Bangladesh. They get some of the biggest tornadoes anywhere in the world in Bangladesh. They get dry lines that form in eastern India when the jet stream wraps around the Himalayan plateau during a 2-week period in the early spring. And the southern branch of that jet will cause supercell storms that move off the dry lines out of eastern India and move into Bangladesh. What was that? Oh yeah, many times. Yeah, we almost got sucked into one of that Gary, South Dakota day with those ghost train inflow jets. But most of the time, if you stay out of that core flow of the tornadoes, you'll be okay. But they do have a lot of low pressure. They almost act like a vacuum cleaner. So we've almost got sucked up quite a few times.
One last question? You down for one more?
Oh, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more.
If I would rather to become a storm chaser, what was the first thing I would need to do?
Well, you got to get permission from your parents first. I would have mom and dad take you storm chasing. That's the safest way.
He's been storm chasing with us.
Nice.
We've
That's
taken him.
Get your radar scope back, and then once you get your driver's license, then you can still storm chase with mom or dad until you're 18 or so. And then you can decide, you can have a conversation about it with them. But sometimes you just gotta get out the door, that's the hardest part. But learn storm structure, of course, and maybe you can get your mom and dad to follow the Dominator on a chase.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Never stop chasing!
thank you so much for coming. He's got to go chase some storms, but if you are one of the VIPs and you're going to do the meet and greet, why don't you kind of stay near your seat? A little bit later on, we'll call you.